Ruby Franca, a once popular YouTuber who gave advice on perfect parenting, has just been sentenced to the maximum term for child abuse. This case has sent shockwaves through the online world, raising questions about the ethics of family vlogging, the responsibility of influencers, and the dark side of what we see online. What happens when a family, seemingly living the dream, is exposed for hiding deep and dangerous secrets behind the camera? Today we'll break down Ruby Franca's journey from family vlogger to convicted abuser, from the seemingly perfect YouTube channel to the chilling investigation that led to her downfall. This case is more than just a story of one woman's sentence. It's a wake-up call for how we consume content and what we expect from those we trust online. Before the rise of Ruby Franca's 8 Passengers channel, she was just another stay-at-home mom, navigating the challenges of raising 6 children. She didn't start out seeking fame or fortune. In fact, she was like many other parents, trying to balance family life with her own interests and hobbies. But in 2015, Ruby and her husband Kevin launched the 8 Passengers YouTube channel, initially focusing on their life as parents with a large family. The concept was simple. Ruby would share her parenting tips, homeschooling strategies, and daily routines. The channel quickly grew due to Ruby's approachable and organized demeanor, combined with her strict yet loving approach to parenting. She became known for what she called tough love, and viewers who resonated with her values and structure began flocking to her channel. Ruby's content appeared polished and well-curated, something that seemed to offer a glimpse into the life of a perfect family, where children were well-behaved and parents were in control. However, as we now know, that image was a far cry from the truth. As the Franca family continued to share their lives on YouTube, the 8 Passengers channel exploded in popularity. Within just a few years, they had millions of subscribers and were raking in sponsorships from big-name companies. Ruby's portrayal of a well-ordered, loving household became the face of family vlogging on YouTube. To her followers, Ruby's parenting techniques appeared effective. Her children were often seen happily following the rules, participating in school activities, and engaging in their own routines. The channel showed a picture-perfect family life, complete with fun adventures, family game nights, and heartfelt moments. But behind the camera, things were different. In private, Ruby's so-called parenting methods were often harsh and, as later revealed, abusive. The success of the channel allowed Ruby to continue her brand of strict parenting while profiting off her children's experiences. The line between entertainment and exploitation began to blur, and unfortunately, it took a long time for the public to catch on. Ruby's channel became increasingly controversial, though this didn't happen overnight. As her fan base grew, so did criticism of her parenting methods. Ruby often boasted about her strict discipline, sharing stories of how her children were punished for what she considered disobedience. Her approach involved withholding food, restricting access to basics, comforts, and at times even punishing children for simple mistakes or what could be deemed normal child behavior. Many of her followers justified her methods, believing that a structured and disciplined home was what children needed in order to thrive. However, others began to see troubling signs. For example, in one video, Ruby's young daughter was forced to clean up an entire room as punishment for a minor transgression, only to be filmed and publicly humiliated. In another instance, Ruby's son was made to stand outside in the cold as punishment for an argument with his siblings. These moments, while passed off as tough love by Ruby, raised red flags for many who questioned whether these actions were too harsh, especially when considering that they were made for public consumption. Despite Ruby's growing fame, there were subtle signs that not everything was as perfect as it seemed in the Franca household. Viewers began to notice that Ruby's children, particularly her older kids, started showing signs of distress. They appeared withdrawn in some videos, and there were instances where they seemed anxious or uncomfortable when interacting with Ruby. Fans, at first, brushed these moments off as typical sibling behavior or as kids simply acting out. However, a closer look revealed a pattern of emotional neglect, with some of the children appearing to have been deprived of their basic emotional needs. For example, in one video, Ruby's children were reprimanded harshly for something as trivial as not smiling in a photo. They were often put in situations where their autonomy and comfort were disregarded in favor of creating content. This led some viewers to wonder, was Ruby using her children as pawns in a larger game to maintain her YouTube fame? The question of whether her parenting crossed into abuse was now in the air, but few were willing to speak out until the situation escalated. The investigation into Ruby Franca began after a concerned individual reached out to authorities. According to reports, one of Ruby's children was able to make contact with a trusted adult or organization, revealing the grim details of life inside the Franca household. This led to a welfare check, which uncovered startling evidence of neglect and abuse. Children in the Franca home were allegedly deprived of food, comfort, and emotional support as punishment for minor infractions. The authorities were shocked by what they discovered. As investigators began speaking to Ruby's children, they learned about the systematic emotional manipulation and physical punishment that had been a constant in their lives. The children spoke about being forced to endure long periods of isolation, sometimes being locked out of the house or kept away from their family members as a form of punishment. The severity of the situation became undeniable. Ruby's seemingly perfect family life was nothing more than an illusion, and the truth was far darker than anyone had imagined. The allegations against Ruby Franca were both disturbing and heart-wrenching. As the details of the investigation came to light, it became clear that the children had been subjected to emotional manipulation, verbal abuse, and even physical harm. The punishments were cruel and unnecessary, often involving the withholding of food or basic comforts. One of the most shocking revelations was that Ruby had allegedly forced her children to go without food for extended periods, claiming it was for their own good. Other children were reportedly made to wear uncomfortable clothing, forced to endure public humiliation, and subjected to tasks designed to break their spirit. Experts testified in court about the lasting impact of such abusive behavior, explaining how these experiences could cause long-term psychological damage. Ruby, however, maintained that her approach was simply tough love, and that she had never intended to harm her children. But as the evidence mounted, it became clear that her methods were not only harmful, they were abusive. Ruby's legal proceedings were a spectacle in their own right. The case attracted significant media attention, with reporters and journalists following every detail of the trial. Ruby's defense team argued that her actions were simply a form of discipline that many parents would recognize. They claimed that her intent was always to raise responsible, independent children. However, the prosecution painted a starkly different picture. They argued that Ruby's desire for control and her obsession with presenting a perfect family had led her down a dangerous path of abuse. The testimonies from the children, combined with expert testimony on the effects of her actions, left little room for doubt. The court heard harrowing accounts of what Ruby's children had endured. They described feelings of isolation, fear, and shame. One child in particular broke down in tears during their testimony, recounting the emotional toll of living under Ruby's oppressive control. This testimony was a pivotal moment, showing the world the extent of Ruby's cruelty. As the trial progressed, it became clear that the court had no other choice but to convict Ruby Franca. The trial itself was a dramatic affair. Ruby's attempts to justify her actions in the courtroom were met with skepticism and outrage from both the jury and the public. Her defense painted a picture of a mother who only wanted what was best for her children, but it was clear that her motivations were rooted in control and public validation rather than genuine care. Meanwhile, the prosecution presented a compelling case of systematic abuse, arguing that Ruby had manipulated both her children and her audience. They detailed how Ruby used her children's suffering for content, capturing their distress on video for millions of viewers to see. The emotional toll of the trial was immense. Ruby's children, who had already experienced so much pain, had to relive their trauma on the stand. For many, their bravery in testifying was a powerful moment, one that marked the turning point. In the case, the courtroom became a battleground for truth, and in the end, the jury's decision was unanimous. Ruby Franca's maximum sentence was a significant moment for both the victims and the public. The court handed down a lengthy prison sentence which reflected the severity of the crimes committed. For Ruby, The maximum sentence meant years of incarceration, but for her children, it represented a chance at healing. Ruby's life as a YouTuber, once filled with brand deals, sponsorships, and millions of views, came to an abrupt end. The sentence was seen as a just response to the harm she had caused, though for many it felt like it came too late. The trauma experienced by Ruby's children could never be erased by a prison sentence, but it sent a clear message that abuse would not be tolerated no matter how polished or popular the perpetrator might be. This case also set a precedent for future influencers, showing that there would be consequences for those who exploited their children for fame and profit. The fallout from Ruby's conviction was devastating not just for her, but for her entire family. While Ruby was taken away to serve her sentence, the future of her children remained uncertain. These children had grown up in the limelight, subjected to both public admiration and private torment. They had spent years living under the scrutiny of millions of online viewers, only to find themselves caught in a web of manipulation and control. Their lives had been publicized for profit, and now they had to rebuild from the wreckage of their childhood. For Kevin Franca, Ruby's husband, the situation was equally tragic. While he was not directly involved in the abuse, questions about his role as an enabler of Ruby's actions would likely follow him for the rest of his life. Despite the fact that he was not charged with any crimes, his complicity in allowing Ruby to act without intervention cast a shadow over his role as a father and husband. It was clear that the entire Franca family had been irrevocably changed by the events that unfolded. Ruby's case sparked a range of reactions from the public, particularly her former fans. Many felt betrayed, having once admired Ruby for her parenting tips and family values. Some expressed anger and disgust, realizing that they had been complicit in supporting a woman who had been harming her children all along. Others struggled with the fact that they had been misled by the facade of Ruby's perfect family. This sense of betrayal was not only felt by her fans, but by those who had once looked up to Ruby as a role model. On social media, there was an outpouring of support for the children, with many offering resources to help them through their trauma. The case also prompted a larger conversation about the ethics of family vlogging and the potential dangers of sharing one's children's lives for public consumption. It became clear that Ruby Franca's case was not just about one woman's actions. It was about how we as a society view and consume family content online. Ruby's conviction sent shockwaves through the online parenting community. Family vloggers everywhere were forced to reconsider their content and the way they showcased their children. Many began asking difficult questions about the fine line between discipline and abuse, and how much of a child's life is appropriate to share online. Advocates for child welfare quickly seized on the case, calling for stricter regulations on family content. Some suggested that there should be more oversight on channels that feature children, while others pushed for platforms like YouTube to take greater responsibility in monitoring the content that was being uploaded. The case made it clear that the lines between entertainment and exploitation could easily be crossed, and there was an urgent need for change in how children were portrayed online. Ruby Franca's case has certainly shaken the foundations of family vlogging, especially on platforms like YouTube. The question of how much of a child's life should be shared online has become a major topic of debate. Could this case prompt YouTube and other platforms to introduce stricter policies to protect minors? It's possible that we'll see a greater push for regulations that ensure children are not exploited or harmed for the sake of content creation. We may also see a rise in creators who are more transparent about the impact of their content on their children's well-being. Family channels may be forced to reevaluate their approach, and some could move away from filming day-to-day moments altogether. Ruby's downfall has shown us the potential dangers of overexposing children to the online world, and it's clear that we are only beginning to understand the long-term consequences of this phenomenon. While Ruby Franca's case is focused on her conviction and the legal ramifications, the lasting impact on her children cannot be ignored. These children, who grew up in an environment where they were constantly filmed and made the subject of public scrutiny, have been deeply affected by their experiences. The emotional trauma they've endured as a result of the strict and abusive punishments, combined with the pressure to perform for an online audience, will likely continue to haunt them for years to come. Experts on child development have weighed in, explaining that children raised in such environments often struggle with feelings of insecurity, trust issues, and difficulties forming healthy relationships. As these children grow older, it's important to recognize that their healing will require time, therapy, and the opportunity to live lives free from the judgment and manipulation that Ruby imposed on them. This case should serve as a stark reminder of the need for emotional and psychological support for children in situations where they've been exploited and harmed, whether it's within a family or through public exposure. Ruby Franca's case has ignited a much-needed conversation about the ethics of family vlogging. This form of content, which often showcases the day-to-day lives of families, is popular for its relatability and entertainment value. It gives audiences a window into the lives of parents and children, but there is a darker side to this trend that Ruby's story exposes. While some family vloggers aim to create content that is wholesome and informative, others exploit the very concept of family for profit. Ruby's channel, once celebrated for offering parenting advice, became a tool for financial gain through the exploitation of her children's lives. The blurred line between sharing family moments for genuine connection and turning children into content for monetary gain is one of the most concerning issues within the family vlogging community. Many vloggers often seem to forget that children, like any other human being, have a right to privacy and autonomy. The increasing trend of filming children from birth, capturing personal moments, and even monetizing their lives for the sake of sponsorship deals and views is now under scrutiny. Ruby's case is a grim reminder that not all family content is as innocent as it appears. Social media platforms like YouTube, where Ruby Franca built her career, play a significant role in shaping the content that millions of people consume daily. The question that arises now is, what responsibility do platforms like YouTube have in preventing harmful content, particularly when it comes to children? Ruby's rise to fame and subsequent fall from grace highlights a major gap in how platforms regulate family content. While YouTube has policies regarding child safety, the enforcement of those rules is often inconsistent. Ruby's channel, despite the signs of abuse, was able to generate millions of views, earning her revenue and sponsorships, which were often tied to her children's personal lives. In some ways, YouTube served as an enabler of the behavior, providing Ruby with the tools to exploit her children for financial gain. There has been growing pressure on platforms to take a more active role in ensuring the well-being of children featured in online videos. It's no longer enough to simply provide a platform for content creation. Social media companies must also take a proactive stance in protecting vulnerable individuals, especially when their lives are being shared with the world for profit. Ruby Franca's case serves as a powerful call for these platforms to rethink their policies and protect children from exploitation. Ruby Franca's conviction is not just a personal tragedy for her family. It's a wake-up call for the entire influencer culture. The rise of influencers, especially those in the family niche, has reshaped the way we interact with online content. Many influencers are seen as role models by their followers, who trust them to provide guidance on everything from parenting to lifestyle. The case of Ruby Franca raises critical questions about the responsibilities influencers have toward their audience, particularly when children are involved. Ruby, like many others, cultivated an image of a perfect family, offering advice that many parents adopted. This led to her being seen as a credible source of parenting guidance. However, as we now know, this persona was built on a foundation of manipulation, abuse, and emotional neglect. The danger of influencer culture is that it often glorifies a false reality, where behind the scenes, the cost of perfection may be far greater than anyone realizes. The rise of social media and influencer culture has put immense pressure on creators to maintain a constant stream of content, often leading them to exploit their personal lives for views and sponsorships. Ruby Franca's case is a chilling reminder of the consequences of turning family dynamics into content and the ethical dilemmas this creates. One aspect of Ruby Franca's rise and fall that is often overlooked is the role of her followers. While Ruby was the one creating and sharing the content, her fans, who followed her closely, played a role in elevating her to stardom. They celebrated her parenting style and supported her channel. further encouraging her to continue down the path of family vlogging. As the case unfolded, many of her longtime followers expressed feelings of betrayal and disbelief, unable to reconcile the Ruby they had admired with the one revealed during the trial. This raises an important question about the responsibility of audiences when consuming content. It's easy to become wrapped up in the lives of influencers and celebrities, especially when they make their personal lives so accessible. But there is an ethical responsibility in the way we consume content, especially when it comes to children. As viewers, we should be aware of the potential harm that can come from glorifying certain behaviors, particularly when it involves the exploitation of vulnerable individuals. Followers of influencers, especially those who portray themselves as family figures, need to hold creators accountable and ensure that what they're watching aligns with their ethical values. Ruby Franke's case should serve as a powerful reminder that behind every online persona is a real person, and their well-being should never be sacrificed for the sake of entertainment or profit. Ruby Franke's case also highlights the critical need for updated child protection laws in the digital age. While there are some regulations in place to protect children in entertainment industries like film and television, online content is still a relatively unregulated space. This has led to an increase in child exploitation, where children are used as a means to generate views and revenue without proper oversight. In many cases, these children have no voice or control over how their lives are shared, and their parents are the ones making the decisions on their behalf. In Ruby's case, the abuse was hidden behind the guise of parenting advice, but the effects on her children were very real. Advocates for children's rights are now calling for stronger laws to protect minors from being exploited online. This includes measures such as requiring parental consent, ensuring that content creators are properly vetted, and instituting limits on the types of content that can be posted about children. In a world where children's lives are becoming increasingly public, it's essential that they are given the same protections they would have in any other area of life. Ruby Franke's conviction should act as a catalyst for lawmakers to take action and ensure that children are not subjected to the same kind of exploitation in the future. For Ruby Franke's children, the path to redemption and healing is likely to be long and difficult. While Ruby may have been convicted, the real work begins now for her children as they try to rebuild their lives. The emotional scars from years of manipulation and abuse cannot be undone with a prison sentence. These children will need a strong support system, access to therapy, and an environment where they can feel safe and loved. Ruby's actions have left a deep imprint on their lives, but they are not defined by her. The hope is that with time, they will be able to reclaim their childhoods and learn how to trust and heal. For those who have followed Ruby's story from the beginning, it's important to remember that these children are now the focus. They are not a part of the spectacle. They are human beings deserving of love, care, and privacy. Their healing journey will take time, but it's crucial that they are supported through it every step of the way. Ruby Franke's case also forces us to question the role of celebrity in the realm of family vlogging. In the world of social media, it's easy for individuals to transition from being ordinary parents to online celebrities, all through the use of digital platforms. Ruby, like many other influencers, gained immense popularity because of her ability to present a seemingly perfect family dynamic, something that many viewers idealized. But with the rise of such online fame comes increased pressure to maintain that persona, something Ruby seemed to struggle with. To keep up with the demands of her growing audience, she pushed her children to live their lives under constant scrutiny. It raises the question, what is the true cost of fame in the digital age? For Ruby's children, the consequences were grave. They didn't choose to be famous. They were thrust into it by their parents. As we continue to see influencers gain prominence at an unprecedented rate, we must consider the ethics of celebrity within family vlogging and the impact it has on children who may not have the capacity to understand the consequences of their exposure. Ruby's case brings attention to the fact that celebrity culture in online spaces can lead to exploitation, especially when it involves vulnerable minors who are forced to live out their lives in front of an audience for the sake of views and revenue. What stands out in the aftermath of Ruby Franke's sentencing is the relative silence from the influencer community. When someone with such a large following is exposed for abuse, the response, or lack thereof, from other influencers can be telling. While there are a few influencers who have spoken out against Ruby's actions and offered support to her children, many others in the family vlogging community have remained eerily quiet. This silence is not just a sign of discomfort, but perhaps an indication of the complicity and normalization of exploitative practices within the influencer space. Many family vloggers have been criticized for using their children as a tool for profit, yet little has been done to address this troubling trend. It's as if there's an unspoken agreement within the community to not call out those who cross ethical lines, likely because they too benefit from the same monetization practices. Ruby's case should be a moment for introspection within the influencer community. Are they willing to continue perpetuating a culture where children's lives are commodified for views? Or will they step up to ensure that their practices evolve for the betterment of families everywhere? The need for a collective accountability within the influencer community is now more apparent than ever. Ruby Franca's approach to parenting, which many of her followers admired, was part of a broader trend of tough love parenting that gained traction in the early 2010s. Parenting trends, especially those that are shared on social media platforms, can greatly shape how people perceive effective child rearing. For years, Ruby advocated for a strict and punitive approach to raising children, promoting the idea that discipline should always come before comfort. She often described her children as privileged and justified harsh punishments as ways to teach responsibility and prepare them for the real world. This philosophy is rooted in the concept of teaching children delayed gratification and the ability to deal with hardship. While some parents resonated with this approach, believing it would help their children become resilient, it's clear that Ruby's extreme version of these methods crossed the line into emotional and psychological harm. It's important to reflect on how parenting advice, particularly from popular online figures, can influence our attitudes toward discipline. The rise of Ruby Franca and others like her shows how trends in parenting advice can sometimes push boundaries in ways that are harmful and damaging, especially when these ideas are taken to extremes. Ruby Franca's story is a cautionary tale not just for parents, but for anyone seeking social media fame. It underscores the dangerous allure of online celebrity, where validation from a large following can overshadow ethical considerations. For Ruby, her rise to fame was initially fueled by her parenting advice and family-oriented content. But as the pressure to maintain her popularity grew, so did her willingness to sacrifice her children's well-being in exchange for financial success. This creates a troubling environment where fame and fortune can cloud one's judgment, leading individuals to make decisions that harm their loved ones. The case highlights the psychological toll that social media fame can have on individuals, especially when personal lives are exploited for profit. This addiction to validation, likes, and views often leads to creators losing sight of what truly matters: their families. Ruby Franca's obsession with maintaining a perfect image for her followers ultimately led her down a dark path, where her children's suffering was ignored in favor of maintaining a persona. The question that arises is, how far will people go for fame? And how can we as a society begin to draw a line when it comes to protecting those who are vulnerable, especially children, from becoming part of the cycle of exploitation? Ruby Franca's case will likely serve as a legal precedent for future cases involving the exploitation of children in the digital space. Legal experts have weighed in, noting that the increasing prominence of online influencers and family vloggers necessitates a re-evaluation of how existing child protection laws apply in the digital age. Ruby's conviction for child abuse has brought attention to the need for a more robust legal framework that addresses the unique nature of online exploitation. It's clear that the laws surrounding child protection in the digital space have not kept pace with the rapid growth of online content creation. Experts argue that a combination of new policies, stronger enforcement of existing laws, and a culture of responsibility within the influencer community is needed to protect children from similar situations. This case could set the tone for future legislation that more thoroughly safeguards children's rights in the context of social media and online content creation. As public attention shifts to child welfare in the influencer space, The legal landscape may evolve to ensure that families are not harmed by the commercialization of their private lives. Ruby Franca's case also underscores the importance of advocacy in protecting children from abuse both online and offline. In many ways, it was advocacy groups and individuals who spoke out about the disturbing nature of Ruby's parenting style that brought attention to the situation before it escalated further. Social media users, former followers, and concerned parents raised alarms calling for a closer look at Ruby's content and the impact it had on her children. The voices of these advocates helped ensure that the authorities took action before more harm could be done. Advocacy plays a crucial role in shining a spotlight on cases of exploitation and abuse that might otherwise go unnoticed. It serves as a powerful reminder that people do not have to be passive consumers of content. They can actively advocate for change and stand up for the rights of vulnerable individuals. This case shows that when people come together and speak out against exploitation, they can make a real difference in holding perpetrators accountable and protecting children from harm. The role of advocacy in raising awareness and promoting child safety cannot be overstated, and it should be a model for others who witness harm or abuse in any form. Finally, Ruby Franca's case invites all of us to reflect on our own approaches to parenting, discipline, and the role of children in our lives. The story of Ruby's rise and fall should serve as a moment of self-reflection for parents everywhere. While many of Ruby's followers believed in her strict approach to discipline, it's important to ask, where do we draw the line between discipline and abuse? Ruby's case forces us to reconsider the messages we send to our children and how much we prioritize control, obedience, and perfection over emotional well-being and safety. As parents, we must ask ourselves whether we are allowing societal expectations, social media validation, or parenting trends to influence our choices, and if so, whether those choices are truly in the best interest of our children. This case serves as a reminder that no amount of online fame, approval, or wealth is worth compromising the safety and well-being of our children. The responsibility of raising children requires careful thought, empathy, and self-awareness, and Ruby Franca's downfall shows us what can happen when parents lose sight of these values. One of the most disturbing aspects of Ruby Franca's case is the severe psychological toll it has had on her children. Research on child abuse reveals that the effects of emotional and physical abuse are long-lasting, impacting children's cognitive development, mental health, and overall well-being. Ruby's children, who were subjected to public ridicule, emotional neglect, and severe discipline tactics, now face the daunting task of rebuilding their sense of self-worth. The constant surveillance, being treated as assets to generate income, and living in an environment where their basic needs for love and validation were often denied, have likely led to feelings of deep emotional distress. Children in abusive environments often develop symptoms of anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Ruby's children will likely need extensive therapy and support to navigate the trauma they endured. Beyond the psychological effects, the violation of their privacy at a young age, being featured in public videos without their consent, compounds their trauma. It is crucial that we as a society do not forget the victims in these cases, the children, who are now trying to heal from the wounds inflicted by their parents and the system that allowed their suffering to continue. Their journey of healing must be the focal point of this entire story. Ruby Franca's case has shed light on a dangerous trend in the digital world: the normalization of child exploitation for financial gain. While not every family vlogger operates with ill intent, the practice of monetizing children's lives through YouTube videos, Instagram posts, and other social media platforms has raised serious ethical concerns. In a world where likes, views, and shares equate to money, there's a growing pressure on content creators to push boundaries to stand out. For many, that includes using children as a primary source of content. Children, who cannot fully understand the implications of being on camera, are often thrust into the spotlight to serve the needs of their parents' online fame. This trend puts children at risk of both physical harm and emotional exploitation. The more a child is featured in online content, the more likely they are to experience long-term consequences such as identity issues, anxiety, and the lack of a sense of privacy. Ruby Franca's case serves as a grim reminder of the potential dangers when the lives of children are not respected and protected in online content. As we look to the future, it is essential that we shift away from normalizing the exploitation of children and start holding content creators accountable for the ethical decisions they make regarding their family's privacy and safety. Social media platforms, especially YouTube, play a significant role in amplifying content, and the algorithmic systems they use can inadvertently reward harmful behavior. Ruby Franca's channel grew rapidly because her content was optimized for the algorithm, which prioritizes videos with high engagement rates. This means that sensational, controversial, or attention-grabbing content often gets pushed to the forefront, encouraging creators to go to extreme lengths to gain views. Ruby's content, showcasing her strict, sometimes abusive parenting techniques, became increasingly popular as it attracted large amounts of views and comments. The algorithm doesn't distinguish between healthy, positive content and exploitative or harmful content. It simply favors what garners attention. This presents a major problem when it comes to protecting children from online exploitation. It is not enough to rely on content creators to self-regulate. Platforms like YouTube have a responsibility to take a more active role in ensuring that harmful content is not rewarded by algorithms that drive popularity. In Ruby's case, the algorithmic amplification of her content not only made her a household name, but also encouraged her to continue exploiting her children, knowing that her behavior was being rewarded by views and advertising dollars. The case begs the question, how do we ensure that social media platforms serve as safe spaces for children, and what kind of regulation is necessary to prevent content that could harm vulnerable individuals? One of the key takeaways from Ruby Franca's case is the dangerous disconnect between perception and reality that social media often creates. On platforms like YouTube, families often portray a polished, idealized version of their lives. This curated reality makes it difficult for viewers to distinguish between what is real and what is fabricated. Ruby's videos, in which she projected an image of a perfect, well-disciplined family, attracted a large following of parents seeking advice. Her online persona was that of a strict but loving mother who had it all figured out. Someone who could offer advice on everything from raising well-behaved children to navigating the complexities of family life. However, the reality behind the scenes was far different. Ruby's behavior was manipulative, emotionally damaging, and abusive. This disconnect between the online persona and real-life consequences is a widespread issue in influencer culture. Social media allows influencers to control the narrative, crafting a version of reality that may seem flawless on the surface. However, the hidden truth can often be far darker and more complicated. Ruby's case serves as a sobering reminder of how easily viewers can be misled by an online persona that may not reflect the truth of the situation. It also emphasizes the need for more transparency and accountability in online content creation. As more parents turn to YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram to share their family experiences, it becomes evident that there is a significant ethical responsibility that comes with sharing content involving children. Parenting by nature is a private and intimate experience. But in the digital age, many parents are willing to share it with millions of strangers for the sake of entertainment or income. However, the ethical implications of this are complex. Parents like Ruby Franca, who use their children as content creators, risk compromising their children's autonomy and privacy. It's easy for creators to justify their actions by arguing that they are providing educational or entertaining content, but the emotional and psychological costs on children can be severe. The ethical responsibility of family content creators is to protect the well-being of their children and ensure that any content they produce is in the best interest of their kids, not just their own financial gain. Ruby's case illustrates that when parents put their own fame and success above the well-being of their children, it crosses the line from responsible content creation to exploitation. Parenting is about nurturing and protecting children, and that responsibility should come before the pursuit of views or profits. As we continue to navigate the digital age, it becomes increasingly clear that current child protection laws are outdated and not suited for the complexities of online spaces. While there are laws in place to protect children in traditional media, such as film and television, these regulations often don't apply to online content creators. In the absence of clear regulations, parents are free to make decisions that could have long-term negative consequences for their children's mental and emotional well-being. Advocacy groups have been calling for the implementation of comprehensive child protection policies that specifically address online content creation. These policies would include regulations that limit the amount of time children can be featured in content, guidelines on appropriate content for children, and more stringent guidelines for influencer contracts. Additionally, platforms like YouTube need to be held accountable for the content that is monetized and promoted, ensuring that harmful or exploitative material does not go viral. The goal is not to stifle creativity or free expression, but to create a safer, more responsible space for children growing up in the public eye. Ruby Franca's case should serve as a wake-up call for legislators and content platforms to take the necessary steps to protect children in the digital realm. Ruby Franca's case raises an important point about parental accountability in the digital world. When parents choose to put their children at the center of their online content, they are taking on a significant responsibility. This is a decision that affects not only the children involved, but also the broader public's perception of what is acceptable in terms of child rearing. In Ruby's case, her decision to subject her children to extreme punishments and allow them to be filmed in distressing circumstances demonstrates a lack of regard for their well-being. The focus must now shift to ensuring that parents are held accountable for their actions in the digital space. If parents are allowed to exploit their children for profit, it sends the message that children's rights and privacy are secondary to financial gain. More and more, it is crucial for parents to consider the long-term consequences of exposing their children to the digital world, and for laws to exist that hold them accountable when they fail to protect their children's welfare. Parental accountability is vital for ensuring that children are given the safety and respect they deserve in every aspect of their lives, including the digital one. Ruby Franca's case raises questions about the power of online parenting communities and the trust placed in influencers by their followers. For many, family vloggers like Ruby Franca are more than just content creators. They are seen as virtual mentors, offering advice on how to raise children, handle household challenges, and navigate life's complexities. These communities often foster a sense of connection and solidarity among parents who might feel isolated in their own parenting journeys. However, Ruby's content was not just a sharing of parenting tips. It was a performance, a brand, and, ultimately, a form of exploitation. Her advice, framed under the guise of tough love, not only encouraged extreme discipline, but also built an audience that admired her for her unwavering approach. This phenomenon is concerning because it underscores how deeply influencers can impact viewers' lives, particularly when it comes to parenting. The emotional investment many viewers had in Ruby and her family made it all the more difficult for them to accept that the same person they looked up to for advice could also be committing horrific acts behind closed doors. Ruby Franca's case is a reminder that we must approach online parenting communities with caution. While sharing parenting experiences can be valuable, there is a fine line between offering guidance and promoting harmful, abusive behavior under the guise of authority. We must foster spaces where responsible, empathetic parenting advice is encouraged, without normalizing or glorifying harmful practices. As much as Ruby Franca's actions were her own, the role of the public in holding influencers accountable cannot be overlooked. In the world of family vlogging, the public often plays an active role in propelling influencers to success, providing them with both financial support and moral validation. The viewership numbers, likes, and comments all contribute to the growth of a vlogger's platform. However, the same public can also serve as a powerful force for good by holding creators accountable when they step over ethical lines. In Ruby's case, concerned viewers, some of whom had followed her for years, began to voice their discomfort and suspicions regarding the treatment of her children. These voices, while important, came too late to prevent the damage that had already been done. This situation emphasizes the need for audiences to take a more active stance in calling out harmful content and influencing the behavior of online influencers. The public should no longer simply consume content but actively engage with it, questioning the ethics behind what they're watching and the impact it may have on vulnerable groups, particularly children. It is not enough to simply unfollow or stop watching. Audiences must be part of the solution by speaking out, supporting the victims, and demanding change. Ruby's case highlights the power that viewers hold and their potential to influence the digital culture by collectively holding influencers accountable for their actions. One of the major takeaways from the Ruby Franca case is the urgent need for education and awareness surrounding digital child safety. While many people are aware of the potential dangers of online predators and cyberbullying, the issue of child exploitation through family vlogging remains largely under the radar. In Ruby's case, it wasn't just about exposing her children to inappropriate content. It was about emotionally and physically harming them for the sake of views, shares, and ultimately, revenue. Parents, educators, and policymakers must be made aware of the risks associated with online content creation, particularly when it involves minors. Digital safety education should be integrated into parenting resources, and parents should be encouraged to consider the long-term consequences of making their children's lives public. It's not enough to focus solely on the technical aspects of internet safety, like protecting children from online predators. We need to shift the conversation to include the ethical implications of sharing children's personal lives for the benefit of online fame. Ruby Franca's case has opened the door for a broader discussion on how to protect children in the digital space. It's time for society to equip both parents and children with the knowledge to navigate the complex digital world in a safe, responsible, and ethically sound manner. Ruby Franca's conviction for child abuse could potentially have lasting implications for the family vlogging genre as a whole. In recent years, family vlogs have become one of the most popular categories on YouTube, with millions of viewers tuning in to watch families navigate their daily lives. However, the rise in popularity of these channels has also brought an increasing number of ethical concerns to light. While many family vloggers showcase loving, supportive environments, there is an unsettling trend where children are treated more like products or commodities to be marketed for views and sponsorships. Ruby's case is part of this larger pattern of increasing exploitation, where children become the central focus of content creation, often without fully understanding the consequences. This case may spark a broader reckoning within the family vlogging industry, urging content creators to reassess how they treat their children in the pursuit of views and monetization. There could be a push toward more responsible family vlogging, where the well-being of children is prioritized over profit. Ruby's story may also prompt YouTube and other platforms to develop stricter guidelines and policies on how family content is produced and who benefits from it. As the repercussions of her case unfold, the family vlogging community may be forced to reevaluate the ethical lines it has long blurred in the name of fame and fortune. Ruby Franca's case has the potential to drastically shift the way society views social media parenting advice. For years, influencers like Ruby have been viewed as credible sources of advice, offering tips on everything from managing family dynamics to effective discipline strategies. Her videos portrayed an image of a perfect family, making it easy for viewers to trust her advice and follow her methods. However, now that the truth has come to light, Ruby's influence has been severely tainted, and so has the broader perception of social media parenting figures. This case may make future audiences more cautious when it comes to taking parenting advice from online influencers. It's crucial that viewers recognize that, much like traditional media, social media platforms are filled with individuals who are not necessarily qualified to offer professional guidance on parenting. Ruby Franca's actions demonstrate how dangerous it can be when someone in a position of influence presents an idealized version of parenting without regard for the realities that children face behind the scenes. Moving forward, this case could lead to greater skepticism around social media parenting advice and a push for more professional, evidence-based resources that prioritize the welfare of children. Ruby Franca's case is far from over. While she has been sentenced, the battle for justice doesn't end with her conviction. The ongoing fight for the protection of vulnerable children, especially in digital spaces, is just beginning. Ruby Franca's case is part of a broader movement to highlight the dangers of child exploitation in the influencer culture, and there is still much work to be done to protect children from similar harm. Ruby Franca's case also highlights the economic incentives that drive family vlogging. YouTube and other social media platforms have created a system in which creators are incentivized to produce more content that garners views and engagement, ultimately resulting in financial gain through ads, sponsorships, and branded deals. While some family vloggers produce wholesome, authentic content, others, like Ruby, may be driven by the need to maintain a constant flow of views, likes, and sponsorships. This financial motivation can distort the boundaries between what is ethically acceptable and what is profitable. Parents, under pressure to keep producing content that attracts attention, may compromise their children's safety and well-being in the process. Family vlogging has become a business, and like any business, the pressure to generate profits can be overwhelming. The reality is that some parents are motivated by the financial success their channels bring, to the point where they may disregard the harm done to their children. Ruby Franca's story is a stark reminder that the economic benefits of online content creation must never overshadow the duty of care that parents owe to their children. The question then arises: should there be stricter regulations on how monetization works in content featuring children, or is the answer more about shifting cultural values toward responsible parenting? In the wake of Ruby Franca's sentencing, there is growing recognition that current laws and regulations are not enough to protect children from digital exploitation. While there are laws protecting children from physical abuse and neglect, these legal frameworks often don't extend to the digital space. In Ruby's case, her children's lives were exposed to millions online, and their trauma was not just emotional. It was recorded and shared in a very public way. Digital oversight is essential in protecting children who are featured in online content. More specifically, there is a pressing need for legal reform to safeguard children's rights in the digital era. Currently, there are limited regulations that prevent children from being exploited for commercial gain on platforms like YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. Ruby's case underscores the need for specific laws that address how minors are treated in digital content. These laws could regulate the amount of time children are featured, limit the commercialization of their image and likeness, and ensure that content creators prioritize the well-being of their children over profit. Legal reform should include clearer boundaries around children's consent for digital participation and provide legal recourse for those harmed by exploitation. The case of Ruby Franca highlights the gap between the speed of digital growth and the slow pace of legal adaptation. It's time for lawmakers to catch up and protect the most vulnerable participants in the digital age: children. Ruby Franca's channel, and others like it, have been able to flourish in part because they provided what many perceived as authentic, relatable parenting advice. However, the transparency of that advice was superficial at best. The extreme punishments and emotionally abusive tactics employed by Ruby were never fully disclosed to her audience, which only saw what was framed as a tough-love approach to discipline. Transparency is crucial in the digital parenting space, and Ruby's case demonstrates why. In the pursuit of views and revenue, content creators have a responsibility to be honest about their practices and their family dynamics. If a vlogger's parenting methods are extreme or controversial, they should be upfront about it rather than masking it as normal, relatable parenting. The potential for harm increases when content creators portray a distorted version of reality, presenting harmful practices as effective or desirable. This can lead vulnerable viewers to adopt similar approaches to parenting, believing they are following an expert's advice. Ruby's case emphasizes the importance of transparency, not only in what is shared, but also in acknowledging the impact that advice and content can have on audiences, especially when dealing with sensitive topics like child discipline and family dynamics. As Ruby Franca's story continues to unfold, one of the critical factors in preventing future cases of abuse like hers is education. Public awareness about the signs of child abuse and exploitation in digital spaces can help identify harmful behavior early, before it escalates to something as extreme as Ruby's actions. Education about the potential dangers of sharing personal, family-oriented content on social media is essential for parents and influencers alike. Children, especially minors, should not be used as instruments to gain fame, popularity, or financial benefits. The message needs to be clear that while social media is a powerful tool for sharing and connecting, it is not a platform where children should be commodified. Public education campaigns should be created to inform the public about the potential dangers of family vlogging, emphasizing the psychological impact on children and the ethical dilemmas involved. In schools, educators could help teach children about the risks of growing up in the digital spotlight, and parents should be given the resources to understand how to engage with social media in a healthy, responsible way. Ruby's case will hopefully spark a larger movement of awareness and education, leading to a societal shift where the well-being of children in digital spaces is taken as seriously as their physical safety. Ruby Franca's channel and others, like it, have also brought attention to the dangers of performative parenting in the digital age. This term refers to the phenomenon in which parents prioritize their online image as perfect parents, rather than focusing on the genuine needs of their children. Parents who engage in performative parenting create an illusion of family life that is not only unrealistic but also harmful. They showcase idealized images of family dynamics, whether it's an overly disciplined child or a perfect smiling family photo, without acknowledging the complexities of real-life parenting. Ruby's content was a prime example of performative parenting, where the reality of emotional and physical abuse was hidden behind a facade of parenting success. This performative approach to parenting is not only disingenuous but also dangerous, as it encourages unrealistic expectations for both parents and children. When these expectations are not met, frustration and anger can build up, leading to abusive behavior. Parents who are caught in the trap of performative parenting may lose sight of the genuine emotional needs of their children, focusing instead on creating a brand that reflects a perfect image. Ruby's case exemplifies how harmful this type of performative behavior can be, and serves as a cautionary tale for both creators and viewers. It is important to remember that genuine parenting is messy, emotional, and, at times, imperfect. There is no one-size-fits-all approach, and the pressure to present a flawless family life can be toxic. In the aftermath of Ruby Franca's conviction, there needs to be a cultural reckoning in the world of family vlogging. The future of family. Content on social media should be grounded in ethics, responsibility, and, above all, the safety of children. The rise of influencer culture has made it possible for anyone with a camera to share their family's private life with the world. And while this democratizes content creation, it also opens the door for exploitation. Family vloggers must understand that, with a large audience comes immense responsibility. The way forward is not to ban family content altogether, but rather to encourage creators to put their children's welfare first and to develop guidelines that protect them from exploitation. Platforms like YouTube must continue to evolve and implement stricter policies that protect children's rights, ensuring that content creators are held accountable for their actions. Additionally, there needs to be a broader cultural shift that prioritizes the privacy and dignity of children in the digital world. Ruby Franca's case should serve as a critical moment in rethinking the ethics of family vlogging and call for a future where content creators balance their digital presence with the real-world responsibility they owe their children. One of two, the most significant and often overlooked aspects of Ruby Franca's case is the psychological toll that growing up in the public eye has on children. Children by nature are still developing emotionally and mentally, and subjecting them to the constant scrutiny of millions of online viewers is an incredibly invasive experience. For Ruby's children, being featured in videos meant their lives were not only made public but also scrutinized and often judged by people they had never met. This kind of exposure can lead to anxiety, depression, and a profound sense of powerlessness, especially when the child's needs, boundaries, and well-being are ignored for the sake of content creation. The psychological effects of being raised in an environment where emotional and physical abuse is normalized, often in the name of discipline or tough love, can leave lasting scars. Children who are subjected to such treatment may struggle with issues of self-worth, trust, and identity long after they are removed from the abusive situation. This highlights an urgent need for child welfare systems to recognize the long-term impact of digital exploitation and to provide support for children who are subjected to online exploitation, even when it comes in the form of so-called family content. The effects of growing up in the public eye should be part of the conversation about child safety on the internet, especially as social media continues to play a prominent role in shaping childhood experiences. Ruby Franca's conviction is only the beginning of a long and challenging journey for her children. The long-term repercussions of growing up in an environment of emotional and physical abuse will likely continue to affect them throughout their lives. These children have been exposed to not just physical abuse but also the profound emotional trauma of having their suffering documented and broadcast to the world. Their sense of normalcy and safety was deeply disturbed by the abuse, and it will take significant time, therapy, and emotional healing to help them recover. Moreover, the public nature of their trauma adds another layer of complexity. While other children may experience trauma in private, Ruby's children had to live with the fact that millions of people were watching their pain unfold. This can lead to a distorted sense of self-worth and deep confusion about what healthy relationships, boundaries, and love should look like. The healing process for these children will require not only psychological counseling, but also the support of caring adults who can help them rebuild their lives outside the shadow of their past. It is crucial for society to remember that the true victims of cases like Ruby's are not just the children who were directly abused, but also the broader consequences that extend throughout their lives. Healing from such deep wounds will take time, and ensuring that these children are given a chance at a healthy, happy life must be a priority going forward. Social media platforms like YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram have long been critiqued for their role in facilitating harmful content, particularly when it comes to children. The case of Ruby Franca brings to light how these platforms can inadvertently contribute to child exploitation. While platforms have community guidelines in place that prohibit abuse and exploitation, they often fail to adequately monitor or regulate content that involves children. This is partly because these platforms are built to reward content that generates high engagement, which often leads creators to push boundaries to maintain attention and views. Ruby's channel, for example, had millions of subscribers and was likely benefiting from the same algorithms that promote sensational and emotionally charged content. As a result, social media platforms must take a more active role in identifying content that exploits children and enforcing stricter policies. They must be held accountable for allowing content that violates children's rights to be monetized and consumed by audiences. Platforms need to collaborate with child protection organizations to develop more effective mechanisms for tracking and reporting abusive content. This includes the creation of clearer guidelines for family vlogs and content creators who feature children, as well as better enforcement of age-appropriate protections. It's time for social media platforms to recognize their responsibility in preventing child exploitation and prioritize the safety of children over profits. Ruby Franca's case is an example of the failure of law enforcement to detect the signs of child abuse within the online space before the situation escalated to the point of criminal charges. While Ruby's content may have been flagged by concerned viewers, there were clear signs of abusive behavior that, if caught earlier, could have prevented years of harm to her children. The difficulty in detecting child abuse in the digital age highlights a significant gap in law enforcement's ability to monitor and intervene in cases of online exploitation. Police and child protective services often lack the resources or training needed to understand the nuances of online content, making it harder for them to recognize potential abuse through the lens of a family vlog. Ruby's case could serve as a call to action for law enforcement agencies to develop specialized units or partnerships with digital experts who can monitor family vlogs and other online content for signs of abuse. Such units would be better equipped to intervene when a child's safety is in jeopardy, even before traditional indicators of abuse like physical injury or neglect are present. Early detection of online child abuse, especially within the context of family vlogs, could prevent many children from experiencing long-term trauma. It is crucial that law enforcement agencies adapt to the evolving digital landscape to effectively protect children from online exploitation. Ruby Franca's case also underscores the importance of concerned viewers in exposing harmful content. The role of the audience cannot be understated when it comes to holding content creators accountable. In the case of Ruby's channel, many viewers began to voice their concerns after noticing signs of mistreatment and neglect which eventually led to her arrest and conviction. The bravery of these individuals in speaking out, even when it was uncomfortable or difficult to do so, it is not enough to simply unfollow or stop watching. Audiences must be part of the solution by speaking out, supporting the victims, and demanding change. Ruby's case highlights the power that viewers hold and their potential to influence the digital culture by collectively holding influencers accountable for their actions. One of the major takeaways from the Ruby Franca case is the urgent need for education and awareness surrounding digital child safety. While many people are aware of the potential dangers of online predators and cyberbullying, the issue of child exploitation through family vlogging remains largely under the radar. In Ruby's case, it wasn't just about exposing her children to inappropriate content. It was about emotionally and physically harming them for the sake of views, shares, and ultimately, revenue. Parents, educators, and policymakers must be made aware of the risks associated with online content creation, particularly when it involves minors. Digital safety education should be integrated into parenting resources, and parents should be encouraged to consider the long-term consequences of making their children's lives public. It's not enough to focus solely on the technical aspects of internet safety, like protecting children from online predators. We need to shift the conversation to include the ethical implications of sharing children's personal lives for the benefit of online fame. Ruby Franca's case has opened the door for a broader discussion on how to protect children in the digital space. It's time for society to equip both parents and children with the knowledge to navigate the complex digital world in a safe, responsible, and ethically sound manner. Ruby Franca's conviction for child abuse could potentially have lasting implications for the family vlogging genre as a whole. In recent years, family vlogs have become one of the most popular categories on YouTube, with millions of viewers tuning in to watch families navigate their daily lives. However, the rise in popularity of these channels has also brought an increasing number of ethical concerns to light. While many family vloggers showcase loving, supportive environments, there is an unsettling trend where children are treated more like products or commodities to be marketed for views and sponsorships. Ruby's case is part of this larger pattern of increasing exploitation, where children become the central focus of content creation, often without fully understanding the consequences. This case may spark a broader reckoning within the family vlogging industry, urging content creators to reassess how they treat their children in the pursuit of views and monetization. There could be a push toward more responsible family vlogging, where the well-being of children is prioritized over profit. Ruby's story may also prompt YouTube and other platforms to develop stricter guidelines and policies on how family content is produced and who benefits from it. As the repercussions of her case unfold, the family vlogging community may be forced to reevaluate the ethical lines it has long blurred in the name of fame and fortune. Ruby Franca's case has the potential to drastically shift the way society views social media parenting advice. For years, influencers like Ruby have been viewed as credible sources of advice, offering tips on everything from managing family dynamics to effective discipline strategies. Her videos portrayed an image of a perfect family, making it easy for viewers to trust her advice and follow her methods. However, now that the truth has come to light, Ruby's influence has been severely tainted, and so has the broader perception of social media parenting figures. This case may make future audiences more cautious when it comes to taking parenting advice from online influencers. It's crucial that viewers recognize that, much like traditional media, social media platforms are filled with individuals who are not necessarily qualified to offer professional guidance on parenting. Ruby Franca's actions demonstrate how dangerous it can be when someone in a position of influence presents an idealized version of parenting without regard for the realities that children face behind the scenes. Moving forward, this case could lead to greater skepticism around social media parenting advice and a push for more professional, evidence-based resources that prioritize the welfare of children. Ruby Franca's case is far from over. While she has been sentenced, the battle for justice doesn't end with her conviction. The ongoing fight for the protection of vulnerable children, especially in digital spaces, is just beginning. Ruby Franca's case is part of a broader movement to highlight the dangers of child exploitation in the influencer culture, and there is still much work to be done to protect children from similar harm. For these children, the trauma of physical and emotional abuse is compounded by the knowledge that their suffering is visible to millions of people, many of whom are strangers. This public exposure can turn what might otherwise be private pain into a shared experience with a broad audience, leading to feelings of shame, isolation, and confusion. Imagine growing up and realizing that your most vulnerable moments, your emotional breakdowns, punishments, and moments of fear, are not only captured on camera, but shared with people who have their own opinions about you. This kind of exposure can distort a child's understanding of normalcy and create long-term issues with self-esteem and personal identity. Even when the abusive situation ends, the emotional damage caused by years of public trauma remains, leading to a long and difficult healing process. Parents who choose to vloggerize their children's lives, especially in abusive or harmful contexts, often fail to understand the severity of the emotional consequences their children will face, not just in childhood, but into adulthood. Ruby, Franca's case is a potent reminder of the dangers of exposing children to public scrutiny while they are still developing emotionally and psychologically. Ruby Franca's case also raises important questions about the tension between privacy and publicity in the digital age. While family vlogging is a form of self-expression and sharing, it also strips away privacy for both the parents and the children involved. In an era where everyone has a camera and a platform, the boundaries between what is private and what is public are becoming increasingly blurred. Parents, especially those in the public eye, may feel compelled to share intimate details of their family life, often without fully considering the long-term impact this could have on their children. In Ruby's case, her children were not just spectators to their own abuse. They were also forced into the role of public figures, with their pain and humiliation being broadcast to the world. Privacy is a fundamental human right, and no child should be denied the ability to have their private life protected, especially from unnecessary exploitation. As the digital landscape continues to evolve, it's crucial to reflect on the boundaries between public and private life. Are we, as a society, doing enough to protect children's right to privacy, particularly when parents use them for content creation? Ruby Franca's case should spark a broader discussion about how to respect and safeguard the privacy of children in a world where every family's life is just a click away from being made public. One of the most significant aspects of Ruby Franca's downfall was the role her audience played in exposing the abuse. Viewers who had been following Ruby's family for years noticed troubling signs of mistreatment and spoke out. This illustrates the power of an audience to hold content creators accountable for their actions. In the traditional media world, creators, performers, or even authors were often shielded from direct scrutiny by the public. But in the age of digital content, viewers have unprecedented access to both the lives of the creators and the power to demand transparency and ethical behavior. Ruby's viewers, many of whom had followed the family for a long time, were the ones who first began to raise alarms about the treatment of her children. This direct connection between content creators and their viewers has the potential to be a powerful tool for accountability. If more people are willing to speak out against abusive or harmful content, we can create a culture of accountability where creators are held responsible for their actions. Ruby Franca's case reveals that audiences need to adopt a more critical perspective, especially when it comes to the well-being of children and family vlogs. Viewers must realize the power they hold in ensuring that creators follow ethical guidelines that prioritize the safety and dignity of all involved. The rise of family vlogs in recent years has created a unique and sometimes troubling dynamic in which children are involved in content creation at a very young age, with few clear regulations in place to safeguard their well-being. Ruby Franca's case exemplifies how the pressures of online fame can lead to harmful decisions, such as exploiting children for views and profits. As family vlogs continue to grow in popularity, there is a pressing need for a cultural shift toward responsible digital parenting. Parents, particularly those who choose to share their families online, must recognize the power they hold in shaping the experiences and identities of their children. Responsible digital parenting should include thoughtful consideration of the content being shared, ensuring that it aligns with the values of respect, empathy, and consent. Parents must prioritize their children's privacy and emotional health over the pursuit of online fame or monetary gain. The culture around family vlogging needs to change so that the practice no longer glamorizes exposure at the cost of children's well-being. Ethical standards, transparency, and a focus on mental and emotional health should be at the heart of digital parenting practices. Ruby Franca's case is a wake-up call for creators, parents, and audiences alike. Together, we must build a more responsible and compassionate digital world for children. Ruby Franca's case also demands a broader, national conversation about child exploitation in the digital age. As social media platforms continue to evolve and shape how we communicate, connect, and consume information, we must ask ourselves, are we doing enough to protect children from the risks that come with this new digital environment? Family vlogs and online parenting content have exploded in popularity, and while many creators have good intentions, there are inevitably instances where children are exploited or harmed in the process. The conversation surrounding child protection on social media platforms must become a national priority. It's not just about the individual cases of abuse, but the broader systemic issues at play. How do we protect children in a world where every moment of their lives can be captured, shared, and monetized? This is a question that legislators, child advocacy groups, parents, and content creators need to answer together. Ruby Franca's case is just one example of a much larger issue that needs to be addressed through legislation, awareness campaigns, and education about responsible content creation. A national conversation on child exploitation in the digital age will help ensure that we have the necessary legal protections and cultural shifts to prevent further harm to children in the digital space. Finally, Ruby Franca's case highlights the urgent need for stricter guidelines when it comes to family-based content on digital platforms. These guidelines could include age restrictions for content featuring children, enhanced privacy settings, and more transparent disclosure about the potential impacts of family vlogs. Platforms like YouTube have the responsibility to ensure that creators are adhering to ethical standards, and this could be achieved through stronger policies such as vetting content before it is published or introducing penalties for creators who violate children's rights. The guidelines should be comprehensive, offering clear instructions for parents who choose to include their children in their videos, while safeguarding the children's privacy and well-being. Additionally, platforms should be required to provide resources for content creators about child protection laws, mental health considerations, and the long-term impacts of public exposure. Ruby Franca's case should serve as a catalyst for the implementation of such regulations, ensuring that family-based content on digital platforms doesn't come at the expense of children's rights. Ruby Franca's case forces us to consider the unseen harm that can result from children being thrust into the spotlight of social media fame. While some may view family vloggers as simply documenting their everyday lives, what they fail to realize is the immense pressure and scrutiny that children face in the process. The pressure to perform, to be perfect, or to conform to a certain image of what is deemed likable can have detrimental effects on a child's sense of self-worth. Ruby's children, as a part of her YouTube channel, were unwitting participants in this cycle, often facing high levels of judgment and expectation. The dynamics of social media fame, constant exposure, growing pressure for perfection, and external validation are magnified for children who are more vulnerable to the stress of being in the public eye. Unlike adults, children's understanding of fame and public attention is limited, and they can struggle to comprehend the consequences of such exposure. For Ruby Franca's children, their fame was tied to their trauma, making their situation even more complicated. The emotional cost of being on the internet, with the constant need to be on for viewers, can create a disconnect between a child's private life and their public persona. The tragic reality is that many children, like Ruby's, never asked for the limelight and, in many cases, do not have the emotional tools to handle the pressures that come with it. Ruby Franca's case highlights the disturbing trend of monetizing family life. It raises significant ethical questions. How far is too far when it comes to profiting from children's personal lives? In Ruby's case, her children were not just passive participants in family videos. They were key to the content, often featured in distressing or humiliating situations. The desire for viral content and monetization can lead to situations where children's dignity is sacrificed for the sake of views, likes, and ad revenue. The problem arises when family vloggers like Ruby choose to prioritize the financial incentives over the well-being of their children. As their fame grows, so does the pressure to produce more content, sometimes leading to situations where parents push boundaries in dangerous or unhealthy ways. Ruby's children were trapped in a system where their suffering was exploited for financial gain, and they had no voice or control over their participation. Family vlogging has become a multi-million-dollar industry, but it comes with a darker side, one that involves the potential for emotional, physical, and psychological harm. This practice has led to a new form of child exploitation, where the lines between entertainment and child abuse blur, especially when profit is involved. Ruby Franca's case is an urgent reminder of how the quest for financial gain can be dangerously intertwined with the abuse of children, particularly when children's lives are marketed as content. Ruby Franca's case raises a critical question about the adequacy of current child protection laws, particularly in the digital realm. While there are laws in place to protect children from physical abuse and neglect, there is a significant gap when it comes to protecting children from digital exploitation. In many jurisdictions, child protection laws were not designed to address the challenges posed by social media, making it harder to intervene in cases of exploitation like Ruby's. The absence of clear, enforceable laws around the use of children in family vlogs means that there is little deterrent for parents who may choose to exploit their children for views or money. Moreover, social media platforms often operate in a legal gray area, with some creators bending the rules or finding loopholes to continue producing harmful content. What is needed is comprehensive legal reform that addresses the specific challenges of the digital age. Laws should be updated to regulate family vlogs, ensuring that children's rights are protected and that parents are held accountable for the content they create. These laws should mandate transparency about the age, consent, and participation of children in online content creation. It's critical that lawmakers work with child advocacy organizations and digital experts to develop a framework that adequately addresses child exploitation in the context of family vlogging. Ruby Franca's case serves as a powerful call for reform in child protection laws that better reflect the realities of social media and the digital economy. Another aspect of Ruby Franca's case that requires reflection is the role of influencers in setting ethical standards for online content creation. As online platforms become increasingly integral to the way we live, influencers and content creators hold a significant amount of power in shaping culture and norms. However, with that influence comes responsibility. Many influencers are quick to monetize their following, but there are few that prioritize ethical guidelines when creating content, especially when children are involved. In the case of Ruby Franca, she was an influencer who made choices that ultimately harmed her children, yet she continued to build her brand under the guise of family-friendly content. As influencers gain power, they also need to set the standard for how children should be treated within the digital space. Ethical guidelines for content creators, especially family vloggers, should be rooted in respect for privacy, emotional well-being, and the right to consent. Just because content creators are within their rights to post whatever they want, doesn't mean that they should, especially when it concerns children's safety and dignity. Ruby Franca's case highlights the need for influencers to be more mindful of the potential harms of their content, and to adopt ethical standards that put children's best interests first. Influencers need to lead the way in creating content that does not exploit or harm their audiences, particularly the most vulnerable, children. Transparency is a critical factor that can help prevent cases like Ruby Franca's from occurring in the future. When content involves children, the public and the platform has the right to know how the children are being treated and whether they have consented to being part of the content. Transparency in family vlogging is crucial not only to protect the children involved, but also to foster an ethical relationship between content creators and their audience. Unfortunately, Ruby Franca's case demonstrated a lack of transparency. She portrayed an idealized version of family life, hiding the abuse that was occurring behind the scenes. When the reality of the situation came to light, it was shocking for many viewers who had been led to believe that the Franca family was simply a regular family. This lack of transparency undermined trust and made it harder for concerned viewers to understand the true dynamics of the family. In response, there must be greater emphasis on transparency from creators who involve their children in content. Parents should be held to a higher standard of disclosure regarding their children's participation in videos, including consent from the children themselves and an understanding of the long-term impact of public exposure. Audiences must also become more vigilant, questioning the authenticity of content and not just consuming it at face value. Ruby Franca's case is a reminder that, without transparency, abuse can remain hidden, and children's rights can easily be violated. One of the key ways to address the broader issue of child exploitation in digital spaces is through education. Parents, content creators, and audiences alike must be educated about the risks of involving children in online content and the importance of protecting their well-being. Many parents may not fully realize the psychological and emotional toll of making their children the focus of online content. Educational programs should be created to raise awareness of the ethical implications of using children in videos and other online media. This education should be accessible to all creators, not just those who are already facing legal scrutiny or public backlash. By educating content creators and parents about the long-term effects of digital exposure on children, we can prevent future instances of exploitation. Additionally, education should also focus on how to spot signs of abuse and encourage early intervention when problems arise. Schools and child advocacy groups can play a critical role in teaching children about their rights in the digital space and ensuring that they understand the importance of consent and privacy in an increasingly digital world. Ruby Franca's case should prompt a wider conversation about the need for educational resources that prevent exploitation before it happens. By equipping both parents and children with knowledge, we can create a safer online environment for the next generation. Ultimately, Ruby Franca's case calls for a broader conversation about how to create a digital future that prioritizes child welfare. We are in a moment of rapid change where technology is reshaping the way we communicate, share, and interact with others. However, as we move forward, we must ensure that the protection of children remains at the forefront of the conversation. This means not just implementing stricter laws and guidelines, but also fostering a cultural shift that values the privacy, dignity, and well-being of children above all else. Ruby Franca's story is a cautionary tale of what happens when these values are neglected in favor of fame, profit, or convenience. Moving forward, it is vital that the digital space evolves in a way that recognizes the inherent vulnerabilities of children and builds protections around them. This includes stronger regulations for online platforms, better education for content creators, and greater awareness among audiences. By coming together as a society to protect the most vulnerable members, we can build a digital future where children's rights are respected and their safety is assured. Ruby Franca's case also highlights the significant role online communities can play in raising awareness about potential abuse. In the past, it was difficult for ordinary people to hold public figures or content creators accountable for their actions. However, with the rise of social media and online platforms, audiences have more influence than ever. Viewers who followed Ruby's family and noticed troubling signs were the first to bring attention to the situation. These online communities, often on platforms like Reddit, Twitter, and YouTube itself, can be powerful forces for change. They provide spaces for concerned individuals to come together, share information, and voice their concerns. In Ruby's case, the online community not only helped shed light on the abuse, but also spurred investigations that eventually led to her conviction. This shows that when we come together as an online community, we can support each other and help expose harmful behaviors that may otherwise go unnoticed. However, it's important to note that while online communities can play a key role, they must also be careful not to engage in mob behavior, where allegations are made without evidence. Responsible activism online is about ensuring that concerns are raised in a respectful, accurate, and well-supported manner. Ruby Franca's conviction sets a critical legal precedent in the realm of child protection and social media content creation. As more and more parents turn to family vlogging as a means of income, the need for legal frameworks to protect children from abuse in these contexts has never been more pressing. The case underscores the importance of laws that specifically address child exploitation in digital spaces, as well as the importance of regulating content creation involving minors. Ruby's sentencing may inspire legal reforms that provide clearer guidelines for family vloggers, particularly in areas such as consent, child protection, and the emotional well-being of children involved in such content. It also sends a strong message to other content creators who might be tempted to exploit their children for views or profits, highlighting the severe consequences of child abuse. Legal systems around the world should look to Ruby Franca's case as an example of how the law can evolve to meet the challenges posed by the digital age. If we want to prevent future cases like this, we need to ensure that the legal system is equipped to deal with the complexities of social media and content creation involving minors. One of the most important lessons to take away from Ruby Franca's case is the need for accountability in content creation. For too long, many content creators, especially in the family vlogging genre, have been able to hide behind the facade of reality TV or family-friendly content while their actions went unchecked. However, the case of Ruby Franca has shown us that there are real-life consequences to the actions of content creators, particularly when it comes to the safety and well-being of children. Accountability should not only come from the legal system, but also from the platforms that host such content. Social media platforms, such as YouTube, have a responsibility to implement stricter rules around family content, including better monitoring of videos that feature children. These platforms can no longer simply act as neutral hosts. They must be proactive in ensuring that children's rights are not being violated and that creators who engage in abusive behavior are held accountable. The digital landscape is constantly evolving, but the principle of accountability should remain a cornerstone of online content creation. If creators want to share their lives with the world, they must do so responsibly, understanding that their actions have real consequences. Finally, Ruby Franca's case underscores the need for stronger child advocacy and support organizations that can provide resources to families and children in need. It's essential for parents who may be struggling with the pressures of parenting, especially in the public eye, to have access to support systems that can help them make healthier choices. These organizations can provide guidance on parenting, strategies that prioritize children's emotional and psychological well-being, as well as offer tools for identifying early signs of abuse. More efforts should be made to raise awareness about the importance of mental health support for parents and the critical role these services play in preventing abuse. Additionally, child advocacy organizations can be instrumental in lobbying for stronger laws that protect children from digital exploitation and educating the public about the risks of family vlogging. Ruby Franca's case highlights the crucial intersection between child welfare and digital content creation, and it's clear that we need more resources and support for families navigating these complexities. Building a society that nurtures and protects children requires a commitment to long-term investment in child advocacy and preventative measures. Ruby Franca's story is a tragic and cautionary tale, but it is also one that can inspire change. Her case forces us to confront difficult questions about parenting, privacy, exploitation, and the moral responsibilities of digital content creators. It challenges us to look at the pressures that family vloggers face and consider the impact those pressures have on their children. It also serves as a reminder of the power of digital platforms and the necessity of accountability in the online world. While we can't undo the harm that has already been done to Ruby's children, we can take important steps to prevent similar situations from occurring in the future. By advocating for stronger legal protections, fostering better mental health support for parents, and creating an online culture that values transparency and respect for privacy, we can help ensure that children are never again subjected to exploitation for the sake of views, fame, or profit. As viewers, we also have a role to play. We must be more discerning, more critical, and more vocal about the content we consume. If we see something that feels wrong or troubling, we need to speak out, just as Ruby Franca's audience did. In the end, Ruby Franca's story is about more than just one individual. It's a broader reflection of the challenges of raising children in the digital age. It's a wake-up call for all of us to be more mindful of the impact that social media and online content can have on the lives of the most vulnerable among us, our children. Let this be a turning point. Let's take the lessons learned from this tragedy and use them to create a safer, more responsible digital future where children's well-being comes first. If you found this video informative, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe.